Okay, we're back with Maggie. So a funny thing happened at the end of our last conversation, or the interview, essentially, that I did with Maggie, and that was when we got finished once we stopped recording, all of a sudden you mentioned something that I was like, wow, we should have talked about that. And then there was a whole bunch of other stuff that came up, and I said, well, okay, I guess we'll just do another talk at some point. And that's what this is. So, so there was some other aspects to this process that unfolded for you that may be relatable for other people. It will definitely be relatable for some people. And as we were just discussing, you wanted to point out that it may or may not be relatable to some people, meaning if this doesn't happen to you or you don't go through these things, that's totally fine too, of course. It's just, everybody has a different experience of this. But maybe just start like on the timeline of, what'd you mention, the big void? How'd you term that when we were talking?
Abyss.
The abyss.
Taking the plunge into the abyss. Yes.
Maybe just reorient us to that time in your life.
Yes. So.
And I'll reference the other video as well. So if anyone hasn't seen it, they can watch that.
Right. So it's actually really quite interesting. And before we came on, we were talking about this whole situation and how much actually has happened that I didn't even mention during our conversation for quite a few reasons, because I actually kind of at that point didn't even think it was important, and I even thought it's almost like it didn't happen in a sense. And so it sort of came out naturally as we were chatting after our conversation. I thought, gosh, there was this, and then there was this, and then there was this. And I just saw this like really incredible just perfection in what was unfolding. But what I want to say is that as this was unfolding, I was part of a group with a teacher, and because honestly, Angelo, I really didn't know what was happening. Which we're going to talk about, obviously, but it was really confusing at times. I didn't have a name for it. I really didn't understand it, which is why I brought it up in the group with the teacher. And what I noticed is that she, in a very kind of not necessarily direct, but very kind way, she seemed not to want to even talk about it, to want to sort of squish that in some way. And that was also confusing because at the time, I didn't understand why. The only reason why I was bringing this up was because I was looking for someone to tell me, can you explain what's happening to me? Because I just really couldn't make sense out of this. And, fast forward, I completely understand why she squished that. And I completely understand why she didn't want to go there. I mean, there may be other reasons, obviously, that I'm not aware of. But the ones that I am aware of is that she didn't want to sort of create some kind of perception that these experiences, first of all, are necessary in order for us to realize who we truly are. They are not necessarily. And I think that some people may be thinking that just because they're not experiencing these things, that maybe they're off the path or doing something wrong or not getting it or, that sort of thing. So it was just important for me to say that before I even go into it, that this was just part of my journey. It's just something that happened, but I would never want anyone to think like that this is even important in some way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just reflecting. I'll let you speak more, but I was just going to throw something in because I was reflecting on many things that I've gone through myself, but one in particular, when I was much younger, much younger, I tried a certain psychedelic substance, and it was like my first time doing anything like that, and it blew me open so much. There was just no content, and it was like that for hours, such that I wasn't even self-reflecting at all. I wasn't reflecting on the experience at all during that time. It was just, there was like formlessness for a long time. And afterward, because there was literally nothing to even think about during that, I didn't think much of it afterward. I kind of was like, oh, I liked that or something. And I kind of remembered both ends of it with like hallucinatory type things, but the actual formlessness was, I couldn't even reflect on it, and I didn't even register it actually for years. And now looking back, I know exactly what it was. And what's interesting is now that I'm clear on what that was, which is also right here, right now. Now that I'm clear on it, I know that's funny because, again, for anyone watching, I could completely not describe it at all because I really have no reason to, because there's no point. Why would I? It would just, at best, it could confuse people. At worst, it could give you something to seek. And it's never going to be perfectly accurate. I can't actually say it in words. So I don't really have a reason to, but I can definitely see how I could talk about it in extremely mystical ways. That would be true too. So it's funny about these things that some of this, it's just the way people are hooked up. Some people are more inclined to like describe things in detail. Some aren't. Mystical experiences can come before realization. They can come with, they tend to come with realization, and they can come after, and they can come and go randomly. Some people have a lot of them and some people have very few of them, but they're not realization. They're not the same thing as what we're talking about, or was what I'm talking about when I talk about realization. So I would say it that way, that you never really need to hang your hat on anyone else's story, because you might have even experienced something like that, but you would not even say it. You wouldn't put it that way, or you wouldn't use those words. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying this, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. And you know, I had to, like, you know, even this idea to sort of strive to have those experiences, or, you know, have those experiences and then try to kind of recreate them and grab hold of them, you know, all of that is just, I mean, if it happens to us, then it happens, you know, then that's what it is. Like, it's, you know, it's not like a big problem, but it's just good I truly believe that it's good to have that awareness. And honestly, Angelo, I'm really grateful that she squashed it like this. Like, I really, honestly, I understand that so well that she did that. And at the same time, while I completely understand those reasons, I can't deny that this was part of my journey, and it was incredible. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience those moments, because I can simply see the sort of perfection in even how they were kind of seemingly laid out, you know. It's just, it's a mystery and magic and just, yeah. So now that we got that out of the way, I keep on thinking we should start singing Jingle Bells at some point anyway, since I have that Christmas tree behind me. But let's, you know, let's go back.
And I'll even add. Well, I was just going to say, I'll even add that not only would I say these stories, there's a value to telling them more than one. And one is, it gives you a sense of something. It gives you the sense of what it means to start to orient away from mind in one sense, or the structured world we think we create with our mind that we think is real, that we impose upon experience. Like, you can get that flavor from listening to people who have gone through this stuff, for sure. And that's valuable, but again, there's no need to interpret that into an exact story and like look for what they described in your experience, because it won't be like that probably. But the other thing is, what you said is important, that some people go through this, and I mean, you had somewhat of a spiritual context, even though it was still not clear what was happening. Some people go through it with no context, and it can be really, really disorienting and terrifying even sometimes. So sometimes people just hear this stuff and go, oh my God, that's what that was, right? And so it can be helpful in that way as well, I think.
Exactly. And I cannot even imagine the sort of extent to which it can become, you know, really confusing and frightening, in which case, you know, I really recommend that if this is happening, to find someone who can, just at least tell you, it's okay. Like, okay, this is challenging, maybe, and confusing, and maybe even terrifying, but just to know that it's okay. For me, that was extremely important part. And I'm so grateful that I had people in my life who knew what was going on, because so I could relax into those experiences. So I didn't have to be frightened, even though there were moments that I was frightened, but, I could even relax to being frightened, about what was happening. So, yeah. So shall we, I'm trying to now remember where to go with this, and what is it that I
Well, we
took
first started
out?
talking about kundalini, I remember.
Right. So no, actually, that came as like in that seeming perfect sequence. That came a bit later. I think it all, whether this started then or not, or even if it's related, I have no idea. But I can tell you this: that I was really, this was the hardest time in terms of dealing with like the so-called shadow work, and facing things that were extremely painful and difficult to face, and feeling all of it. I wish we could talk about a bit about shadow as well, because I even have trouble saying this word, because I think there's just so much negative connotations that come with that word, and yet there's just such beauty and light there that it's anyway. So this was happening. It was a real intense period of inquiry, let's put it this way. Really intense, really painful period of inquiry. And at some point, as I was kind of worked through a whole lot of stuff, I remember feeling this, like knot in my tummy, like clenched, like, I can only speak of it as some kind of like existential knot. This is what I call, this is like the closest I could get to explaining what that was. That sense of like energetic, physical separation in some sense. And I remember feeling like it almost hurt. And I decided I want to be with this in the deepest way possible without distracting myself, even subtly, and I remember laying down and really going into sensation and asking, what is this? What is this? And I can't tell you through the process because I can't remember it, but it was a set of questions that seemed to just come through naturally, that went like, okay, it's fear of what? Of this. Well, if that means this, then what does that mean? It means this. It was like, it's so hard to explain the sequence I went through that got me to that final question that came through, which was, well, if it's this, then what does that mean? And it meant I was nothing. And that was the abyss that I told you about. It was literally like this dark sense of like darkness, like abyss open up. And
When you experienced that, or that knowing that I am nothing, did it have an emotion tone? Was it the end of emotion? Was there a settledness to it, or?
it was this massive fear that came, and this like sense of like darkness, like what I can only describe it like an abyss. But I just could not go there anymore. I mean, and by the way, it's not like there was a choice there, by the way. It's not like I was choosing actively to go there or not. It was just what was there. But so I say I took a plunge, but the plunge really just happened. And when that happened, Angela, I never knew the shock of what was revealed, of what happened. I literally felt that entire knot that was felt completely dissolved in my tummy. You know, it was like complete, like dissolving and openness, where I literally, my body, everything just melted into the vastness. And there was this, like, I never took drugs, so I don't know. I never used the word ecstasy. But I think for the first time in my life, I experienced what could be called ecstasy. Of like, where there was absolutely no separation between fear and love. Fear was love. You know, there was no separation between, there was nobody there anymore. There was no separation between a feeling, an emotion, my body, my surroundings. You know, it was, yeah. I mean, there's just no words to describe that. But from that moment on, it was, the sense of separation was just, it was visceral. It was just like, it was, I really, I ran out of words. But the reason why this moment was so pivotal, because I realized that at the core of our being, there's this just unconditional love that is so vast and infinite that these little minds just basically cannot describe it, cannot comprehend this. There's no even point of trying, and yet we somehow try to, you know, you can't nail this. You can't pin this. You can't put any, you know, it's here. No. And that this is who we are. You know, this is, yeah. So, I mean, tears, ecstasy, gratitude. I mean, like, had I known that, and of course, I'm now speaking of like what came afterwards, as I was sort of thinking about how, gosh, everything wants to come home. That love contains everything. Yeah. That love excludes absolutely nothing. And I saw how, you know, we fear so much meeting the biggest discomfort and pain. And there's reasons for it. I mean, we've been literally conditioned through our lives to run away, you know, to push away, to deny, to numb, you know, what the difficult emotions, that, you know, difficult experiences. And here I am seeing like literally, come on, come home, come to love, just come, let, you know, like, let me show you, you know, think.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The funny thing about the unconditional love is, like, I remember this insight dawning many years ago, after awakening for me, that everything you said about the unconditional love, it's so big, it's so vast, it's so ephemeral, all-encompassing, radically intimate, that in all of those ways it's beyond the mind's, not even ability to talk or discuss it, but ability to even really comprehend it and put it into an experience of a individual being right now. It's just beyond all that. And yet it's also completely seamless with what you are, with what everything is. And I remember kind of noticing, wow, yeah. In fact, in one sense, this is why we kind of don't wake up for a while. Like we wait, because once you see this, you realize you cannot direct it. You can't control love. It doesn't work that way. It's so much more powerful than the human dimension. And it doesn't, it's just, you know, and I remember that, wow, like what a paradox that was, and a surprise that, as you very rightly pointed out, like the biggest fear you have, the ultimate fear barrier, the existential fear barrier, it's like one side of the coin, the other side is unconditional love, you know?
Yeah.
And then once you see both sides, there are no sides anymore, and it's all the same thing. So fascinating and surprising and totally natural. Yeah.
And totally available.
And simple.
Like all that, like right here, available, you know? And it's funny because even that word, unconditional love, like doesn't cut it. Like even because honestly, whether we like it or not, we're so, you know, our ideas of love as in human love are transactional, are limited, you know, it's like, so even our ideas about what unconditional love is are limiting in a sense. So it's even beyond that. It's beyond our idea of unconditional love in a sense as well.
Yeah. And love even becomes dualistic for the human mind. Like there has to be an object that you love, or, you know, there's a lot of ways to misinterpret, but the point is to contact it directly.
Yes.
That's what realization's about, is an identity level recognition.
Yes.
And I love that you said it's available, and it is. But the but is, and it doesn't have to play out in the ways we're talking about, but you do have to go up against that fear barrier somehow. You have to find your way to the root. And you described it so well, as like, I am nothing. Gangaji somewhere has a beautiful video where she describes exactly this, of going down through the emotional cascade of, you know, fear and fear of abandonment, all the different things. And you get to this place where it's like a fear of not being loved. Then it's like, oh, maybe I'm not lovable. Oh, maybe I'm not anything
special
at all. Yeah. Like, but if you can actually go there, you know, if you can really find your way down to that bottom of yourself, there's an opportunity there. That's all I'm going to say.
And even that, Angela, it's like you know, what do you mean? Like when we hear I am nothing, we take this as undermining something, you know, as if this is almost like offensive or sort of thinking low of yourself. And yet this is like literally nothing. This is exactly the end of that self that is doing these evaluations. And right, so that nothingness.
It's an antidote.
Yeah, that nothingness that we're talking
it's
about
an antidote
is the
to
actual
say, like,
free. So there's like a little delay.
Sorry. I'm sorry for talking over each other.
No. I'm sorry, but no, it's just because there's a delay. So that's why I'm not sure when you're done and when I'm like, that's why.
Go ahead.
Where I was going with this was that, you know, that I am nothing is actually the most liberating, possible thing to realize, you know, that because all these ideas, you know, including the idea of that separate self that is assessing what that means is dissolved. So it's like, I mean, that it's literally, I am nothing means I am free. I mean, and yet we're so afraid of even like the sound of that sentence, I am nothing, you know, it sounds so terrifying for the so-called ego, or, you know, whatever we want to call it. Yeah.
So, the I am nothing is in one sense a an antidote to the constant belief that I'm something, because if I'm something, then there's a whole lot that I'm not. If I'm a man, I'm not a woman. If I'm this kind of political person, I don't see that side of the political spectrum. And those are very superficial things, but even deeper down, if I'm a good person, well, then I can never be a bad person. If I'm a bad person, I could never be a good person. And then even more simple and non-conceptual and preconceptual ideas or impressions of who I am, how the world is, that there is separation. All of those impressions are something like, I am this, I am that. To see that all of that is not, I wouldn't say it limits anything because it doesn't really do anything, but it's a sort of lens that the mind sees through, and then it causes this weird reflection where things seem so small and limited and structured, and there's this weird control thing that goes on that doesn't actually exist. But to see outside of that, through that investigation all the way down to I am nothing in the way I ever thought I was, and to plunge through that fear barrier is, well, it's really what I talk about all the time with these videos, and it's what I'm really always pointing at. It's a possibility everyone has if they want to, and if and when they're ready,
Yeah.
But I think you can attune to it. You can't really force it to happen, I don't think, really, but you can attune to it. You can open yourself to it. You can dig in, inquire.
And I just realized as I was listening to you that with that I am nothing also comes attached, I know nothing. In that, and that is such freedom as well, because honestly, all of a sudden you just realize there's like, I don't have the need to pin anything down or nail anything because it is unpinnable. I don't have the need there's no personal investment anymore in what I think I know.
Mm.
So honestly, like I was talking to my dear friend recently, and how I can't possibly treat what I'm saying seriously, in a sense, like, in a sense of being fixated on it or attached, because this is the only thing that's never changing. My perspective and how I'm experiencing things, or how I'm even talking about them, is like honestly, Angela, like sometimes it's like from day to day, or like week to week, or like it, like, so why would I want to be attached or fixated on what I think I know? Because when that freedom that comes with not having to know, it's like you're meeting everything like it's mystery and fresh.
Yeah.
All the time, every moment, every day. And it doesn't mean that we can't speak perspectives, or we can't share our views or perspectives or experiences. No, absolutely not. There's just such a beauty in the richness of different words and the way we express ourselves. And that in of itself is just so amazing. But it's about that remembering that it's just not this, so we can just let it go very easily. We can just like let it float, let it, let it like, yeah. So yeah, freedom is the key word here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think some people really stumble over that, even after some awakening and some significant insights, struggle with the I don't know part. There's still a kind of attachment to thought and the mind and understanding, and then trying to understand realization and so forth. And there's a place for practical knowledge. There is, and it's fine. But what came to me when you were speaking about it is this important thing that I would point out to anyone who gets stuck with this stuff, gets this like obsession with spiritual knowledge, gets sticky. I would say this: what we're talking about isn't or at least what I'm perceiving, isn't the facts of knowledge. The facts of knowledge are fine. It's that when you're attaching yourself to it, you don't see that you're identifying as the knower. You don't see that. You don't see this is shadow to me. It's just what's behind the view of the one that's holding the knowledge. You don't see like what is it made out of? Why does it want to know? Why is it still afraid to let go of knowledge? Because at some point we're going to let go of everything, of course, right? And so it's the attachment to the knower, to the one that wants to orient to knowing, and you can let that go too, completely.
And it's terrifying.
And then knowledge is there or it's not. It doesn't matter. It's fine, and it can be useful. And you're clearer on when it's useful and when it's not useful. Once that sense of identity with the knower goes away.
And it goes back to what you know what, and I like I was saying, like it really, I get it. Like it's really terrifying. It's really terrifying. And you know, the more beliefs you have, the strongly ingrained, where you don't even recognize it as a belief, but this is how things are. This is how it is. Like, I mean, the stronger the attachment to that and that belief, right? Then the more terrifying this is to let that go. Because you're feeling like you're letting go of yourself. It's like life and death situation almost, right? Like when you sort of identify this strongly with, you think that this is actually who you are and this is the actual truth, you know? And so I mean, it can be absolutely terrifying. And this is why this is another value of working with someone who, you know, is there for you to create the space to go there, you know, to meet that very thing that you're so terrified of meeting. I mean, it's invaluable if we can, you know, listen, does it have to be like a spiritual teacher or something? No, like it can be just a friend who doesn't feel threatened by what's happening or doesn't have the need to jump in and fix you or make things better for you, just to, you know, just be there for you to meet that fully with just curiosity, you know, like what's really going on here, you know, like what is this thing that is being dismantled and crashed and burned, and you know, because like that's where the freedom is, you know, in taking the plunge into things that we fear to meet the most, you know. And so
I would also say, you know, it is valuable to have somebody who can, in one sense, hold your hand. I mean, no one can step off the edge with you, but there are people who can walk to the edge with you and point you to the edge. But it can be valuable. But I also want to point out, you don't have to have it. Like, you don't necessarily have to have a personal teacher one-on-one, you know. No. You can learn from books. You can learn from online videos and things like that. There's a lot of ways this can play out. And the other thing is to watch for somebody who actually is scared, because you might have someone who can even be in a teacher role. And I speak from just seeing this happen to people, where the teacher actually starts to feel scared when you get close to letting go in a deeper way.
Exactly.
So just be aware that can happen too. If you sense that they're like, no, you know, then maybe that's not the person to walk to the edge with. But it can be helpful, especially if somebody's there saying, yeah, it's okay, it's safe.
Yeah.
You know, well, it doesn't feel safe, but it's okay. That's where you want to go.
Yeah, and this is why I always go back to, and I know I'm like sort of relentless with this, and honestly, literally like tired of hearing myself say this, but you know, just continue to remember that our journeys are really unique, and one thing that worked for one person doesn't necessarily have to work for the other. Like, I went through this on my own, but I had that deeper sense that I was safe. And that's like, so it doesn't matter that I was alone. There was knowing that there was like this deeper, even though it was terrifying and painful, like AF painful, you know, that like, but there was a deeper sense of, like, whatever this is going, I feel safe. And so I could, so that's why I went through this on my own. And and you know, came on the other side. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The other thing I thought to say about this is that it is an emotional process, like going through this plunge. It's a dark night kind of thing, and it's a very intense fear and that can come up and so forth. But I will also say that sometimes what actually holds people up is not necessarily the physical experience of fear, but the beliefs around it. Like, if I just go deeper, it's just going to get worse. I won't be able to handle this. If I go too far, I'll never be able to turn back. Like, those thoughts will, it's like you're still feeling the fear. You're paying the price, but you're just not getting the product. Like, just don't worry about those beliefs and be willing to keep going. And you might be surprised when you go through that final veil, and again, what's on the other side, of course, is not what you thought. It just will never be what you thought. It can't be, but it will be okay.
And this is the very reason that people fear the so-called shadow work. This is the very same reason, because as soon as they hear the word shadow, then there's so much guilt attached or shame attached. Anyway, it looks like something to avoid and just, not even go there and everything. And oh my God, but to be able to, have someone that, shows you that very shadow that you're so afraid of is actually light. So you're actually going into light. You're actually bringing that very thing that you've been pushing away to the shadow, you're bringing it home to love. I mean, come on. Then you're like, bring it on. You actually stop fearing this stuff at all. It's like, whenever you detect some kind of shame or guilt, you're like all over it. You're like, bring it on. Let me have a look at this. Let me meet this, right? Because that seeming shadow or whatever, it really contains light. It's really an invitation to come home to love. It's just like, come on, so why wouldn't you want to go home, right? Like, once you know that it's safe, to go there.
So what kind of experiences followed this initial venture into this?
So honestly, and again, it was only as I was reflecting on our conversation, because I knew that conversation was coming, that I started to realize, oh my God, and then this happened, and then this happened, and it was really, so after that, I will not, the freedom, the lightness, that knot of separation that was here, it completely dissolved once and for all, or at least, it's not been there since, because I never assume anything as to what is coming or what's going to happen. So, and I was sitting, it was I think it was a day after that deep plunge, to what I call the abyss. But honestly, not to underestimate, this was really difficult time. Okay. That period before the plunge, it was an intensely painful inquiry into stuff and feeling it, really meeting it, really meaningful. So I really don't want to play it down either, because, but also not over dramatize it. And also, I'm not suggesting that this has to be the case for everybody, really. It's just part of my journey. That this is what it looked like for me and was experienced. And so I remember sitting literally in this room, and there was nobody here. And all of a sudden, it was as if it was like I was sucked into this silence. It was like a gravitational pull that just pulled, there was a sense of energetic pulling me in. I can't really, I apologize. I really can't put it into words. I'm really so bad with describing things. Or it was as if, you had like the best quality high-tech noise canceling headphones that someone all of the sudden, you thought it was quiet in the room, but then someone puts these high-tech headphones and it's like, now you experience like silence, like you never, like the silence that is completely alive. It's so silent but so alive. And and I had no idea what it was, what was going on, but I had to leave everything. There was no choice. I just had to be. I couldn't say like, okay, I'm going to hang with this later once I finish my email. No, everything had to stop in that moment. And I was just there, And honestly, this is obviously my interpretation and completely made up, but it really felt, Angelo, after this intense inquiry and really massive discomfort and pain of doing that I was given a gift of a deepest resting place after this. Like, I came to rest in this. And, so I still don't know what it was. I can't say that I've been trying hard to figure out, but a couple of friends told me that this is what they think is called a samadhi experience. But whether this is actually what it was, or do I need to have a name for it? No, not at all. I'm just, it's just what was experienced. And that would, so however long that lasted, I had to be with it. I had to leave stop everything and just, just be. And it would happen several times over a period of maybe a week or so, every single day, even sometimes during the walk. Yeah. So that was one of the like just amazing things to experience, but I have no idea what it was or like I said, how to call it or why it happened. And yeah, no idea. So, and then I started to develop these, like I would be sitting doing something and all of a sudden my arm would go, or I would jump, or the other arm would go, like just these really, lots of these really involuntary movements. And they started sort of very gradually, and you will see that like why I even see perfection into this. It was almost like something was easing me into this, because it started as like this single, like one-off, very quick kind of involuntary movement. And then it went into like longer. It will go for a few minutes where I would just like, my entire body would just like, there's just like energy just rushing through my body. And sometimes I literally would grab, like hold on to like sofa, just to like, because I thought that I would just like disappear if I didn't. It was just like, it was a bit. And this is like, now I talk about it in like with smile on my face, but believe me, there was no smiling happening at the time, because like it was actually quite like I had no idea what was going on. And again, thankfully, I'm surrounded by people who seem to be more clued on as to those things that I am. And they told me like, okay, I think you're having like this kundalini energy waking up or something, And I of course heard about kundalini before, but I'm really not familiar. Like I really didn't know what that actually meant, or, So I just went with it, and that went on for a long, long time, and it would start becoming more and more intense. But I would also be sort of relaxing more and more into it. It will be like, oh, okay, it's coming. Okay, so I don't have to hold into sofa now, so I can just, okay, so like gradually you know. And then one night I was in my bed and I
Did that happen when you were only by yourself?
No.
Did it only happen while you were by yourself, or did
no.
it happen in? Yeah.
No.
Just curious.
It would happen in front of people, and they were thinking like my partner was laughing that I'm doing the Mexican wave, like, you know, the like, because it really looks like this sometimes. But I mean, there were a few times that he actually had to like hold me because I, like, you know, just to like ground me, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether he had to, I don't know, but the instinct was there, and so, you know, it happened. So yeah, I mean, it was really, really random and happening in all sorts of circumstances that I'd rather it didn't happen, and I mean, I actually could not. There were many times I could actually not talk. See what I mean? Oh, it's like it's happening again. You see, I could not even. Sorry, yeah. I could not.
I've seen it many times talking to people.
Yeah. Oops. Sorry. Oh my God. And so, I could not talk about like things like. I can't even say the word. I'm sorry, because if I go use this word, it's gonna go off again. Sorry. Like I could not like go deeply into certain topics, because if I did, it would just kick in, you know, instantly. And so, but again, I didn't know that at the time, like that there were actual triggers for this, you know? So like I was in bed one night and I put conscious TV on because I love the voice of Renate. She's got one of the most like, you know, calm voices that are just like literally the opposite of my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And she was interviewing somebody, and I just put it on, and usually that's how I fall asleep listening. And I mean, I always end up listening, obviously, then if I fall asleep, I finish the interview on the next day. But I happen to fall asleep a lot just because of her voice, you know? And I just remember that interviewer said the word consciousness. And I was already like, at that point, I knew I was drifting, because I was drifting in and out. I could feel, because sometimes I would hear them talk and sometimes I felt like I fell asleep. And so I was in the kind of in between state when I heard that word. And oh my God, my body like just went into so much shaking. My head, my entire body, that honestly, if I saw someone, if you know, like during the day, if I saw, you know, somebody to whom this is happening, it would freak me out completely. Like I would think that they maybe are having a seizure, or you know, something
Mm-hmm.
like very serious and very, you know, scary is happening. So so I just, you know, it was, and it went on and on. And I remember that first moment when it started, and it was so frightening because that force, I can't, like, I didn't even know how it is possible to feel this much force in one's body, like, you know, and so it was just, I don't know how long it went for, to be frank. I really can't tell you. I can just tell you that I really had to remember that it's okay. I really, really had to remember that it was okay what was happening. And all I can say to you that it went on and on and on, and all of a sudden it was like poof, everything was gone. And I know it sounds bizarre, but like I was gone. I was gone. There was nothing there. And for a moment, I saw this vastness, this dark, like there was like this, I can't even say I saw this because it makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense to say that I saw this, but there was just like this, I don't know how else to say it. So, there was just this complete darkness and vastness and like emptiness, but full. And I saw this bubble floating, like a bubble, like soap bubble in that vast space. And I saw that it was my life, and it could just literally go prick, poof, and it was just gone, and everything just disappeared. I disappeared. There was nobody there. There was just this like emptiness, but full. It was alive. It was, yeah. And then I don't even know when I fell asleep, how I fell asleep. I just don't know. I just know that I woke up on the next day and I was gone. Like, sorry, it's just, yeah. And yeah.
Was there an adjustment for that? Like an adjustment period of?
Oh man, yeah, because it was and my partner told me, because I got up and I looked at him and he said like I literally looked like deer caught in the lights, and I was like, there's nobody here, and I'm really disoriented, but I don't know who's disoriented, so it doesn't make any sense. So I was like completely disoriented because there was nobody there. But there was a sense of disorientation, Mm-hmm. I had no idea, like, I can't describe this, like, because there was nobody there, and yet I can talk about it. Like, something was disorientated, but who was it? I don't know. So that was disorientating. Like, who the hell is disorientated? Because there's nobody here, and so,
Yeah.
and so the only thing I seem to know to do is to start cleaning. So I started really like doing the houseworks and cleaning, and honestly, this was one of the most miraculous experiences. Like, houseworks, it was a miracle. Like, I was experiencing a miracle of cleaning and touching things and like the cloth. And I'm not joking. It was like I was living some kind of mystery and miracle, and this cleaning was like a divine activity, but no one was doing the cleaning. That's the thing. Like, there was no sense of like the cleaning was happening, but there was no one actually doing the cleaning. And so this bit is like, and yet, this was there, and like, doing the actual cleaning, but it was both. And so I suppose it took me a few days to that sense of disorientation sort of left. But it never went back to where it was. Like, in that,
How could it go back?
yeah, like, yeah, like, I never really talked about it, to be frank. So I really don't know. I mean, I did, but a little bit, but not like, because I'm only realizing now as I'm speaking that this, Just bear with me for a second. Like it never went back. There is. Oh man, Angelo, help me out. Sorry.
I try sometimes to talk about it. You know, it's like a sail. It's like a sail with no wind or a front with no back, or it's impossible, but it's happening. I don't know. It's magic. Like I like when you talked about the cleaning, you just realized the cleaning doesn't need a you. It's doing fine by itself.
Right.
Like there's no need for any self structure. Like, does a flower need a self? Does the sky need a self? Does a galaxy need a self? Of course not. It's so obvious that the self illusion is completely not only unnecessary. It's not even there. It's never been there. Never could be there. Things function just fine. It's not happening for anyone, though. It's just. And then when it's not happening for anyone, you could say it's not happening for any. It's not happening for any reason. It's not happening. It doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't need to be going anywhere, because all of that's added on by the need to preserve a sense of self that never existed.
Yes, or even
so
to understand.
Gone, in one sense, everything's gone, and yet it's such a miraculous display of appearance or movement and stillness, which are not too. Yeah, there's no way to talk about this.
There is no way to.
But it's very much an end to something.
Yes, there's I would say that, but you know what? I'm telling you, Angela, I actually I did not think about this. Like, it's only now that I'm realizing. Yeah, it's just that it never went back.
It's a very strange thing, and like, it doesn't surprise me in the least in the way you're expressing this, because it's not an event. It's not like, oh, back then the self died out. It's like, even right now, in one sense, I mean, I don't want to weird anyone out, but it's like I'm staring death in the face all the time. Death is it's like my lover, but so is mystery. So is
mystery.
Empty fullness. Like there's no way to talk about it. But the death is constantly happening. Like reality is constantly coming into being and going out of being, but there's no reality. It's just this appearance. But yeah, there's nothing to say about it. It's not a badge of honor. It's not an accomplishment at all. It's completely the opposite of any belief that anyone could ever accomplish anything.
Yes.
Because nothing ever really happens in the way we try to make reality happen through a self structure of the mind.
Yeah.
Buddhism points very clearly to it. You know, it's the fundamental illusions of, you know, abiding reality, of continuity, of separation and dualistic experience. Like all of that is an illusion. When those illusions go, in one sense, you're left in a place where there's no point in self-reflecting at all, really. You know, how could I can't look backwards and see where this moment came from.
No.
I don't know. It
doesn't, and this is
memories maybe, or thoughts.
Yeah. And this is where, you know, first of all, and I think there's such beauty. I mean, first of all, this is the being comfortable with paradoxes, you know, that this is very much part of that being, that it's both. It's the end of either or this or that, or this is how it has to be. But also there's a very much, you know, the Maggie that is having a human experience that gets like caught up in things and so on, but also completely not caught up in anything. No Maggie here. You know, like simultaneously. So there's no denying of anything that happens or underplaying it or, you know, and I actually really love that it is completely undescribable and unpinnable, because you no longer actually have the need to pin this down or describe it. You're living it. You don't and in fact, naming it in any way or trying to make sense out of this. I mean, it doesn't like, can we share our experience? Can we share our like estimates as to what this is. Like, and I'm even estimates, they're not even estimates. Okay, let's talk, like, they're not even estimates. So in other words, anytime anything comes out of this mouth, it's already not this. It's already not, like, as soon as, yeah. So
yeah.
it's just not this. With like as soon as it comes out, we're talking perspective. We're talking interpretation. We're talking our take, our blah blah blah. And it doesn't matter even when someone speaks from like clarity, and it's felt. When someone speaks from clarity, it's deeply felt. But it's still not this, because as soon as it comes out of the mouth, it's not this. And to remember that, again, to me, this is not about not talking about it or having different ways to talk about it and using different words and having conversations about it. No, it's just that remembering that it's not this. So then we're free to talk and share, but there's no stickiness. There's no
Right.
having to nail anything or have freaking ultimate answer or this, like, yeah, or even how it happens to people, like our ideas of how this is supposed to pan out or what's needed, what's not needed, how it's supposed to look. No, it's all open-ended. There's nobody in control of this, and like it's just happening perfectly, you know? And then we have our ideas about how it's supposed to happen that like completely fuck it up because we think we know better, you know, because we nailed something. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's just such a play, you know, such a dance of these seemingly two things, you know, the perspectives and the truth, you know, the this or the that, you know, it's like, it's just the most beautiful dance, you know? Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's funny and again, paradoxical when you see that there's nothing behind it, when there's nothing behind the appearances, that then they're intimate, non-dualistic experiences, let's say, but to see that there's nothing behind it, there's all of a sudden you're really freed up to be the conventional again, but in a completely immersed way where there's no risk. There's no risk to anything.
Yeah.
There's no need not to fully embrace whatever.
Anything. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever comes up, anything. Yeah.
And in that sense, I actually,
Paradox.
that's the paradox that, and I think that that's what fascinates me, and at least in my experience, this is what I've observed, that there's such fascination, like, you know, with the actual form, with the actual, experience, with this human experience, you know, there's like this, like, not only that you're not running away from anything, you're like constant in this, like, God, how many times did I say like so far? I never say like this many times. What the hell is going on? So, you know, there's this just curiosity, just this openness, this like, you know, there's this real intimacy and even more curiosity, because now that you don't fear your human experience, you can completely immerse yourself in it, and it doesn't matter if it's like massive failure or, you know, some perceived massive failure and embarrassment, and oh my God, like, who is actually being embarrassed here, and what is this really about, you know, like, why is this so painful, you know, like finding all these like sticky, you know, these sticky moments when things are still sticky, like honestly, like I'm like, honestly, there's like so many moments where things appear to be sticky and then it's like immediately like, you know, it's just to explore that, you know, just to there's no arrival point, and I love that so much, because no needing to nail anything, no looking for any ending or end point, you know, it's just, it's here and it's so rich. What is it that you're looking for? Like, there, where's there, you know, like, it's all here. Right? So, you know, and we as humans with these beautiful intellects, you know, because intellect is also part of this, it's like I love that. But, in some ways with these beautiful intellects, we just can complicate things to death. Like, you know what I mean? Like just, just make things like harder, that anything that appears to be too simple just cannot possibly be true. So let's complicate it a little bit. Like, let's, yeah.
Right.
So
let's add a story to it and then resist the story. And
man. Yeah. Yeah. So there's definitely, I was asked recently, and I'm being asked this question many times, how do I reconcile astrology with non-duality? And I completely understand the dilemma, and I completely understand where this question comes from. But the dilemma can only be there when you're seeing, when there's a separation. Because, how do you reconcile implies that those are two separate things. So I need to reconcile them somehow. But I'm sorry, how is our human experience and everything is connected separate? So, it's literally just another way that the astrology is alive. Birth chart is not fixed. It's literally the opposite of nothing is fixed. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is solid, So
yeah, I mean, and the beauty is there's nothing to reconcile.
There's
right?
nothing to reconcile.
Do you have to reconcile science? Do you have to reconcile religion? Do you have to reconcile physical form? Do you have to reconcile formlessness? You don't have to reconcile any of those once identity's dropped out of it all.
Yeah.
And it's just seen to be an illusion. Then things simply appear as they are. And it's playful. It's playful and innocent and simple.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to reconcile anymore.
There is nothing to reconcile. And in fact, I would say that at least in my, of course, every astrologer is different, but in the way I go about it is literally meeting with the person the very things that they are so afraid to see and meet in themselves. So we're actually coming, we're going home, we're coming home, and to look at the things that we're so afraid to look and just meet that, that's really it. There's no separate self. Because one of the things I heard was like, this is a reinforcement of separate self, the astrology. But Angela, I can absolutely see how if any modality that we're dealing, right, whether it's inquiry, therapy, astrology, or anything, if the person using the modality sees you as a separate self that is not whole, that needs fixing, and we're only doing the work so that you can be a bit less fucked up and more comfortable with this, human experience, then yes, absolutely. I can see how it can reinforce and keep you in that sense of separate self. Absolutely. But and even inquiry can be that. Really, really good inquiry can even reinforce still that sense of separate self.
Even people talking about non-duality can do it.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. That is literally a whole new freaking topic. Thanks so much for bringing this up, because I actually haven't heard anyone say this yet. Really say it. Yeah. Yeah. It's anything can be that, including non-duality. Anything has the tendency to become another person's belief system. Even non-duality will be a belief system that this is what non-dual awakening looks like. And if it does, you don't tick all the boxes, you're not there. Or it's not, you're still
right.
having, that sort of thing. And so, I genuinely don't even understand how anyone can perceive, let's say, a birth chart as something fixed, because all I'm seeing is just this divine manifestation of a human existence that is alive, and nothing is misplaced and nothing is not supposed to not be there, other than our narratives about something being a mistake, or this should not be happening, or I should not be going through this. It's it's alive. It's what fixed self? Are you kidding me? You're like staring at the face of God only in that form, in that manifests itself in this beautiful chart that you're looking at. I mean, come on, so like, yeah. So I think I recognize, I understand that it's not in the approach or in the modality. It's in the person using it. Like if they see you as separate self, they will reinforce it through that modality. But if they don't, then come on, let's play. Like let's go.
Yeah, I am totally with you. I'm totally with you on that, and I mean 100%. Like it's true with therapy. If a therapist has massive emotional repression, they're going to be very, very difficult, even if they have good skills, to get you through that. If they're empty of self, you're gonna wake up one way or another. But it's true of all the different modalities, whether it's enneagrams you believe in, or work through Myers-Briggs type stuff, personality stuff, whether you do improv or acting or art or any of this stuff. If you're approaching it and or with a mentor approaching it through the lens of no lens, the lens of finding the deepest truth and going beyond the limits of the self structure and so forth, it's going to be a profoundly transformative experience. And it doesn't honestly matter the flavor. It doesn't. What matters, as you said, is the facilitator.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not about,
and you're willing, and the person's willingness.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not, there's nothing wrong per se with any approach. There are different paths that lead you home. You never know which one. You would have no clue what's actually doing the thing, or even anything, right? Like apart from everything else, like this idea that anyone is actually knowing anything about how this works. Okay, but I recognize there's multiple approaches. There's multiple. It's like many people, like you and I, we speak of the same thing, but like in different ways, it has different flavor, and right, like, so it's not about this is right or wrong. It's about exactly the premise from which it is being done, fixed or not fixed, the idea of some sort of fixed self that needs fixing and so on. But also I think I don't know. I'm just getting too excited about these things when I think about it, and then I lose the plot. So that's what just happened. Oh, yes, I know what I wanted to say. It's also about, like, it's not about that there's one wrong, right approach, blah, blah, blah. It's about also the spotting our fixation on this. You know what I mean? On any one approach. Yes. It's not about the variety of approach is great, but if you're fixated and saying, okay, this is the only way, or it's only this, or it's blah blah blah, this is definitely something to. And honestly, I get immediately suspicious if someone implies that like this is the only way and their way is like not the way, and it like comes very strongly about it. No, like no. Like no, just I get immediately suspicious.
Yeah, I agree. Fixation specifically is what I think what I address with people when I work directly in this setting of awakening and so forth is I directly address the feeling of fixation, the energetics of it. But and fixation happens at all levels, and in the emotion body and in the belief system and so forth. But yeah, what often gets overlooked is the fixation on spirituality, or your version of spirituality, or your teacher, or your path, or that kind of fixation can really hide because we've convinced ourselves that spirituality is going to get us there somehow. But it's not our idea of spirituality that gets us anywhere. It's a willingness to surrender. And it comes in spiritual flavors, but ultimately, at some point, you have to let go of all of that as well.
Yeah.
And
the idea
plunge.
of an awakened person, like, what the hell does that mean? Of an awakened person, of awakening, and any ideas, Like when we don't recognize those for ideas in the first place, I mean, that's trouble. You know what I mean? Like we don't even differentiate, between the two. So yeah, to me, this is just the beauty of the open-endedness of this and the complete mystery and even, I'm because we are so good at spotting people's fixations and blind spots, but really suck at spotting our own. So, I'm also the first one to tell you, I will never tell you that I'm free of this but boy, am I open to having it pointed out to me. Like if someone sees, please tell me and thank you. Like if you know what I mean? Like, thank you so much for spotting this, so I can see that, so I can meet that. Another thing that is like free to come home, rather than play out in some, not useful, not helpful ways, right?
Yeah, that's another fixation that really can come up with spirituality, where you can be a teacher, you can be a whatever you think, whatever your conclusions are about what's happening, but not wanting to expose yourself to a teacher of some sort, whether it's, it's best one-on-one, some sort of teacher, someone you can bounce things off of that you trust, that you know what I mean? Like it's easy to not expose yourself to any sort of feedback. And so that's one thing I recommend to people. It doesn't have to be a formal arrangement with a teacher, but just someone you feel is realized that could see something that needs to be seen, and having some willingness to interact with them one way or another. So I'll allude to something like I watched a 4-part documentary recently about a contemporary spiritual teacher right now who is probably kind of a cult leader. And it was a really good documentary, by the way. It was on Netflix. And one of the things I noticed was this person very adamantly and publicly and repeatedly said, I don't have a teacher. I don't need a teacher. Like the presumption was I'm as aware as anyone in the world, the most aware person in the world kind of thing. So I don't need a teacher. But what struck me after watching it was I kind of started feeling sorry for her and her inner circle. And towards the end, I thought, what you need is a teacher, though. What you need is just to expose, because she was clear in a lot of ways. She had she definitely had insight, and she had influence over people and so forth, but she had some major emotional fixations. And my thought towards the end was like, just expose yourself to a teacher of some sort. Like get a teacher, get someone who can reflect this and let go of the remaining ego, and you'll probably be you will be much better off, as will your students and stuff. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where that came from, is an extreme example of somebody who just refuses to have any kind of teacher of any sort, or any, I don't know, feedback, or just being open to feedback, as you said, open to feedback from whomever, your friends, or,
Yeah, and can it be even, there's always this little residue of like twinge, like, it's when someone points something out to you that like you didn't see or miss, of course it's there, but like it's welcome. It's like, if you see through my bullshit, tell me, I'll join you. Like I want this exposed, like, and really with like genuine gratitude, because that's why it's called a blind spot, that we don't recognize it ourselves. So, to have someone that can tell you this and do it kindly, because also, it's very possible to, some people will just like the way they deliver things might not necessarily be great, or maybe even do it when they're uninvited, in some ways, so there's like the whole thing around this. But either way, honestly, I feel such massive gratitude when things like this are pointed out to me. I might, even if I have a little, like, it stings a little bit, like maybe initially, but so what? Like, thank you so much for this, It's like,
I was going to tell you, I got to tell you something along those lines. Some of your lights on your Christmas tree are they're crooked.
Are they?
I'm joking. That's a joke.
No, my first thing was like, what does it mean for lights to be crooked? I'm like, the first thing, like, that's so curious. I've never heard that statement. And honestly,
Yeah,
why
sorry,
are you?
I hate to
And
tell
by
you
the
this,
way,
but
why are you insulting my Christmas tree? That's just so rude and such an awful thing. To, like, this is a season of kindness and loveliness, and you're like criticizing my.
well, I'll just assume there's a present for me underneath it.
It's a mystery, Angela. Like, you never know, like what's there under that Christmas tree.
Are those lights purple?
Purple.
Are there actually purple lights on it?
There are no
No,
part.
maybe they're blue. It looks purple in this image.
I mean, there's loads. There's like what I'm seeing in the camera is like mostly white lights. I see no purple
Yeah,
lights. I see some red and some green in the camera. But yeah, it's a
I
mixture.
see green, red, a little bit of yellow.
Yes.
There must be blue that are. Oh, blue. Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it
Cool.
is at the very bottom. Yeah.
Pretty.
Thank you. I love Christmas season.
All right. Yeah. It's a nice season.
Yeah.
Does it get snowy where you are?
Say again, please.
Snow? Will it snow where you
know
are?
what?
You're gonna get snow?
I'll send you pictures that I took today of frosty plants and grass and everything, because we don't get to see that very often. But honestly, I came out this morning and I was am I in Narnia or what? It was just so pretty. I was taking pictures of like frost and leaves and plants and everything. It was just like so stunning and sparkly. But oh my God, is it cold? We're not used to below zero temperatures. So when it happens, it's like,
Oh, wow.
like it's been really, really cold. You see, like I'm completely like wrapped up, and I actually have my hot water bottle. I even have my hot water bottle here because it was been really cold.
There you go.
So yeah, but as far as like snow, if there's always drama around. So like snow is coming, like drama, like literally people's lives coming to stop, and then you have like 2 centimeters of snow and it's like melting in 2 seconds. So no, we don't really get that like super Christmassy, snowy. You get it, right? You're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, Colorado varies. Like we may like right now, I don't think there's snow on the ground, but we can get a blizzard and get like 2 feet of snow on not super commonly, but we could get that easily. So, yeah, Colorado's there's major variations in the weather, but it's not terribly uncommon. We have snow on Christmas, so it's kind of fun.
I was there once in January in Boulder. And I remember the one thing that I remember of that place was how incredibly kind people were there. Like I met so many kind people in so many ways that I thought, wow, this is probably like the first place that I've been, and I travel quite a lot, where like I met this many people in such a short period of time in like one spot. It was really yeah, really loved it there. So I hope to go back one day, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. It was really nice catching up again and going through some of specifically the Kundalini stuff, because I don't have a lot of interviews where we talk about it, but I met a good number of people who've gone through.
Yeah.
That's one of the more intense like versions of it I've heard, but I've heard of people going through some of that. And some people, I mean, some people have it like ongoing for years, but it's mild. Like it'll usually happen when they're listening to a talk or working directly with somebody, inquiry and so forth. It'll happen mildly. Like it's not uncommon. I'm talking to somebody and they're, they go like that, or they make a vocalization and
I mean, yeah.
But anyway, so thanks for sharing all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's ongoing for me. Like there are periods where it sort of like subsides, for a while, and then it comes in. And sometimes, like, not even if I listen to, doesn't necessarily have to be anything about consciousness or something like go universe and consciousness, like boom, it's just happening. But it happens all the time, but it had not happened with such intensity, obviously, like in that moment at night that I described. But ever since someone told me they know of people who had that was pretty dramatic in that it actually, in a sense, paralyzed their bodies. Not permanently, but in that moment, like there was some kind of like even like twisty situation happening with their body. So it's funny that you say this is actually like the most intense one of the people I talked about, and it turns out like this is really like it can be way more intense than what I experienced. So I'm really happy that I mean, if something like that happened, that will happen, and that's it, But I'm kind of happy that there was no twisting of my arms and like some that sort of thing happening. So, but all I would say is just if someone is experiencing this, to just relax into this as much as possible. That would be the only thing that I would that I would say, that I know to say, but other than that, like I'm really no expert on kundalini. I have no idea what this really is, and I also don't have the need to necessarily again pin this down or even try to understand it. So I can just talk about it in terms of like an experience that happened. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again. I'll put links to your YouTube channel, your website.
Thank you.
Anything else you want under the video for anyone who's interested in getting in contact with Maggie and seeing what she does.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And it was so great to see you again. And yeah, really, really enjoyed this. Really, really enjoyed this Christmassy.
I did too.
Christmassy conversation, or the conversation in a Christmassy setting.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.